Hey, everybody. You see some folks coming into the room right now. Really good to have y'all here. Simon, Bob, Kerosy, Darren, Steven. Um, if you could just say hi in the chat real quick to confirm that you can hear me, I'm coming through okay. That would be awesome. Awesome. Hey, Simon, appreciate you. We'll give folks just a couple of minutes to get in today, and then we'll get kick-started with the main agenda, which is going to be chatting about our Chrome extension. So excited to give you all some more information on some common use cases with that Chrome extension and how teams are using it to really 5x their productivity in their day-to-day, streamline that prospect research, and ultimately generate more relevant content at scale, even outside of their inbox. So we'll get started in just a couple minutes here. As we're going through, feel free to drop questions in the chat. We're absolutely going to be answering some questions today, especially if you are using the Chrome extension currently and you have a specific question related to how you're using it. That is exactly what we are here to do for you today. Hey, Chad, so you just come in. Good to see you. All right, we'll give folks till about 2 minutes after the hour, and then we will dig in. If folks want to put in the chat, would love to know where folks are calling in from. I appreciate you taking some time out of your November Wednesday. Oh, fantastic. We love our international users. So thank you so much for being here. It's probably late over there right now, so I appreciate you taking some time to come hang out with us. That's fantastic. Okay. All right, so we're about 2 minutes after the hour here, so I will dig in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. We'll start to cover some pieces, but first I always like to reset with folks that are coming in, just in case you haven't seen Regie in a little bit, or maybe you're unfamiliar with Regie. But you should see in just a second Regie start to come through on my monitor here. Should be on your main screen that you're seeing right here. And basically, just to kind of quantify what we're looking at here, Regie's an AI-enriched content intelligence platform. And what that means is Regie's got the ability to create full sales sequences, marketing campaigns, as well as a variety of one-off pieces of content. So you can imagine, your sales reps that are out there prospecting in their day-to-day, sending those, one-off emails either out of their their sales engagement platform or their inbox, right? And that prospecting effort takes a lot of time. So Regie's really helped streamline a lot of the details that go into that. And then we also have some features for marketing teams. We have the ability to create full blogs, social posts based off of your URLs and things like that. And then it's all foundationally powered by a content management system. So you can use this to store and deploy content and actually track analytics back on that content. But today what we're going to be focused on is the Chrome extension, which brings a lot of the power to Regie directly to your inbox or your sales engagement platform. So what I'll do is I'll actually highlight a few use cases as we go through some of the platforms that we're supported on. So starting right here, you can see we're in Outlook. So this is one of the main areas that Regie supports as well. You can think of your Outlook inbox on the browser specifically. We don't yet support the desktop application for Outlook, but we do and will support that in the near future. But if you're writing an email in the browser, you can see here, and I'll actually zoom in so you can see the analyzer over here a little bit better. Okay, there we go. We're getting closer. So you can see here, I'm writing an email to Rocco. He is our head of growth here at Regie. But you can see no matter what you're writing, the analyzer is going to come right here with you. And this analyzer is broken down into a few different component pieces, right? So you can think of this as kind of that email coach sitting on your shoulder, just making sure that you're following best practices as you're going through your day-to-day and writing those emails. This is tuned based off of the 100 plus million emails that we analyze any given month. So you can always see that this is going to be tuned based around how people are actually responding to content in the wild. So you'll see here, it's going to give you some coaching around your subject line, your message length, which then impacts that reading time. And you can see if you're outside of the bounds on what typically is going to get you a response, Reggie is going to give you some coaching on why that is, as well as some information on how to get, closer to where you want to be. It's also going to give you that reading time and kind of the same thing there. Emails with shorter reading times perform far better than those that have a long time to read. And the reason behind that really comes down to the way that the human attention span works. The average person, especially the average like VP or C-level executives, getting somewhere between 60 and 80 emails a day. A good chunk of those are going to be prospecting emails. So the more consumable that you can make your message, the more relevant you can make your message, and then ultimately the easier to read you can make your message, you just continue to increase the likelihood that you're ultimately going to get that response, which is, something to really keep in mind as you're crafting any message. And then the same thing, like it's going to tell you if the message is too short, like this one that is here, it's lacking context. We want to get more context in there, from there. It's also going to give you a score on the readability of your email. So what we have found through the data that we've gone through is that emails written between a third and an eighth grade level tend to resonate the best and actually elicit the most positive responses. And that kind of goes back into what I was talking about before. Everybody's getting these prospecting emails in their inbox, and they're constantly being told of, a variety of things that they could be looking at. So the easier you make it for the prospect to understand exactly why you're reaching out and why that's important, the better off that you're going to be. Reggie's also going to make sure that you're asking questions in your email. Emails that ask questions perform better on average than those that don't ask any questions at all. So this is a really great thing to keep in mind as you're trying to engage with those different prospects, right? And then finally, Reggie's also going to make sure that you're talking more about your prospect than you're talking about yourself with this I to U ratio here. We want to make sure that we're really focused on the person that we're reaching out for, really shifting the narrative from, coming here to, give feature overviews to selling, and actually moving that towards like, how can we help people get more done in their day? How can we make their quality of work life better? How can we actually help them solve a problem that's important to them? And then Reggie's also going to proactively protect your deliverability by highlighting any spam words or phrases that might be in your email. So this is also constantly tuned based on how spam filters are, updating in the wild. So this can be really helpful just to make sure that you're not, negatively impacting your potential deliverability before sending that message out. And then this is one of my favorite features. This is unique to Regie.ai. No other generative AI tool does this right now. But we also scan all of the language that's being written for gender bias and inclusion so that you can make sure no matter who you're out there prospecting against, that you're using the most inclusive language possible, which is very, very cool. I'm going to move over to Gmail real quick here just to show you this view in a slightly different window here. So again, you'll see I'm also emailing Rocco here. That analyzer is going to follow me and persist as I'm writing my different messages here. But there's some more tools in this toolbox here that we can use to even flesh out more things. So I'm going to click into the AI content, or the AI toolkit over here, I should say. And you'll realize by default, this is going to be on a module that we call the personalized cold email, right? And Reggie's just going to have you answer a couple of contextual questions. So it's going to ask your company or product name. I personally recommend including the domain to your primary website or primary landing page that you'd like Reggie to reference content on. Giving a direct domain will actually tell Reggie more specifically where to look on the web when it's trying to contextualize some of this information. Let me actually zoom in a little bit further here just so we can make this bigger, so you can see what I am filling out right here. So you'll have that company or product name, and then you'll provide a company or product description. I typically pull this directly from the website, especially when I'm writing on behalf of a business that I don't work for, because pulling text from the website is often going to be a great way to coach Reggie on how that brand already talks about themselves, so that the messaging, kind of resonates in that brand tone as well. You'll also notate a tone of voice that you want Reggie to use when crafting that message. I tend to use engaging for a lot of mine. I find that the output's just really clean that way. But Reggie is a natural language processor. And what that means is you can literally put any type of tone that you want into this field, and Reggie is going to work its hardest to write something in that tone. So I do always encourage folks to experiment with this. We often see folks come in and use other tones such as funny, humorous, professional, Sometimes I'll even use data focused, especially if I'm reaching out to a technical leader or somebody in that space. But there's a lot of things that you can do creatively here to make this more and more robust. And then finally, you round this out just by stating very plainly what you want Reggie to talk about, what you want to talk about in this email, I should say. And I always recommend folks, like, as best you can, describe what you want to talk about the way that you would to a colleague or a friend. Like, try to keep it casual, but also try to keep it very specific to what you want to talk about. Because again, Reggie's going to be able to contextualize all of that information for you. I saw a question in the chat from Katie. She asked, is it best practice to pick one tone? It's a really great question. The short answer is yes. You really want to choose one tone if at all possible, because oftentimes certain tones will conflict with each other, right? And so if you put too many tones in and it causes conflict, the language that comes out is going to be a little bit more generic, right? So I recommend picking one tone and trying to stick with that, but obviously experimenting with different tones until you find the output that works best for what you're trying to accomplish. And then rounding this out, you'll notice at the bottom here that you can actually designate the target language of this output. So we support over 25 different languages in here. And so if you are in the process of working, overseas on some content, prospecting to countries that are primarily using different languages, you can use Reggie to generate that content as well on the fly. And I'll show you in a little bit. You can also take pre-written content that was written in English and easily translate that to one of those supported languages. Once you fill this out, all you do is click Generate Content at the bottom here. And now Reggie, in a matter of seconds, is going to give you 3 different examples of an email that you could use based off of those inputs. All of this is then, fully editable once you paste it into the kind of composition window of your email over here. And you'll notice Reggie's going to follow some of those best practices that we talked about on the analyzer from before. So it's opening, with a really pointed question. I always love when Reggie pulls a statistic in like this. Do your reps spend 20 to 30% of their time writing emails? That statistic is verifiably true, which is great. It can also be a really great relevant opener for a message like this, right? And then as you scroll down, you can see some of those other messages there. And then, of course, you can always go back to that prompt that we originally built out to see how changing, the description down here will change the ultimate message. So, like, let's say that instead of just talking about generative AI messaging for sales teams, I wanted to talk about building sequences. Actually, let's make that more specific. Persona-specific sequences at scale. Generate that content, and then you'll then see another output of about 3 different emails that are going to be contextual to that. All right. So the fun doesn't stop here with just this personal cold email generator, right? So you'll notice that this is actually a dropdown, and this houses all of our different AI modules here. And I'm going to show you a few more places on the web where you can actually make use of this. So just scrolling through this list to give you a little bit more context on what's in here, I can actually go through. I can do a personalized introduction, which is just going to help me craft that rapport bridge in my message. So if I'm trying to figure out something to write there, I can use that to make it a little bit more personal. I'm going to show you in a second how you can actually leverage prospect research via Reggie's Chrome extension to really personalize that message. But maybe I'm struggling to quantify, how to describe my value proposition, right? So it'd be the same thing here. I'm going to use very similar description from before to generate this value prop. Sales teams write better emails. Keywords, I'll do sales messaging. Keywords is always an interesting one to experiment with as well. You'll notice some of the AI modules are going to request keywords to be put in. Typically, what we see work best here is a keyword that is very contextual to what your product or company does. And then a keyword about either the industry that you're reaching out to, the seniority level of the persona you're reaching out to just make it more specific to that person. So I'll say sales messaging and sales leaders here, and then I'm just going to double tap on that in the buyer persona section here by clarifying for sales leaders. Then I'll generate that content. And just like we did before, now Reggie's going to give me a few different value propositions. So if I'm struggling to figure out, how to say or state my value, I can easily just grab it here, copy and paste it over. Now that I've got this snippet over here, you'll notice the analyzer is going to continue to update in real time as I make adjustments to this email. But in the composition window itself now, Regie also brings the power of AI to these individual sentences as well. So let's say I've got a value statement like this, but again, maybe I want to rephrase that. All I have to do is actually highlight that text, and you'll see our context menu pop up with a number of different commands. I can auto-complete the sentence if I want Regie to write more based off of that sentence. I can rephrase that sentence where Reggie's going to try to take the core idea of that sentence and craft a new way of stating it. I can shorten that sentence, which will help make it even more direct. And then I can also expand on that sentence to give me a little bit more content to work with. So you'll see, I'll click rephrase, and then Reggie's going to give me a side-by-side here of the rephrase statement versus the original statement that we had written here. And then I can click the green check mark to just implement it. It'll override the other piece there. I can regenerate that again if I want to see another example of what that rephrase might look like. Or I can copy and paste that snippet if perhaps I want to use it in another part of my email. There you have it. Going back to the AI toolkit real quick, just to highlight a couple of other really key use cases in here. One thing that I love to look at, it's actually in beta right now, and it's at the bottom of our list here, but it's the correlator. So the correlator can be really helpful when it comes to generating some sort of rapport bridge that references a common interest or something unique about that prospect. So, Rocco, as we're emailing him here, we're going to talk about, perhaps Rocco loves to go to punk music festivals. So I'm going to try to have Regie correlate, like, what does attending a punk rock music festival have to do with writing sales emails? And then Reggie's going to give me some ideas there to help me get started. Creativity and a strong understanding of your audience. That's so true. That's so true. A good punk rock music festival knows their audience well. They can be extremely gratifying experiences. Writing sales emails and attending punk rock music festivals can be a great way to connect with like-minded people. So to give you some ideas like that you can then use to really craft something personal that might be, a little bit more personally relevant to that prospect. And there's a variety of things that you can do here as well. And I'll show you how this works in a few other spaces too in just a moment. I saw Marissa just post in the chat. Thank you so much, Marissa. Good to see you again. Really appreciate you attending these webinars. It's always nice to see more friendly faces out there. Okay, so I want to pause here. We'll go more into the AI toolkit in just a second on some of these other platforms, but I'm going to show you one of my favorite features with Regie. One thing that we have heard time and time again from frontline sellers is that they're just spending a ton of time trying to figure out what to research and what to personalize for. With Regie, whenever you're leveraging our Chrome extension, whether it's in your inbox, your sales engagement platform, even your CRM, if you're using Salesforce or HubSpot as a CRM, and you're emailing somebody in the to line, you'll have this personalization tab right here. And what this can do is surface very specific insights on the prospect that you're emailing. So starting at a more broad level, just some overview information on that prospect. You'll have hyperlinks to their social media handles here. You'll have their location, what their title is at the company. But then via an integration that we have with Humantix, we can also surface communication advice based off of the posting and communication habits of that prospect. So this will give you not only some key traits about that prospect, but also some do's and don'ts for crafting your message to them. So this can be a really helpful guide as you're kind of finessing those manual emails that you're sending out to make sure that you're not only communicating the value that you can provide in a really strong way, but you're communicating with the prospect in a way that resonates with them. One of the things that I commonly talk about is you really have to meet your prospects about 90% of the way there. You can't expect them to be ready to meet you halfway. So like give. And this can be a really good way to set up and make sure that you're giving in the way that they like best. Katie just put in the chat a really great point to go along with that, which is this is also really great to double check before you start dialing. This can definitely help, put you a little bit more at ease on the type of person that you're going to be talking to before they pick up the phone, as well as how you might want to adjust your pitch on the way that they talk. Like with Rocco here, you want to stick to that standard pitch. If you try to improv too much, Rocco's going to know what's going on, and he might question you on it. In addition to that, it's also going to give you some high-level traits from a DISC personality profile and Ocean personality profile framework. And put simply, these two personality profile frameworks are just that. They're frameworks that, psychologists have used to bucket different types of employees into different type of communication types. So this is, again, just more background information on that. But again, to tie it back into what I was saying before, we keep hearing like the research piece just takes a long time, right? So even as you scroll through this list, you'll see some other categories of information that we can surface. So all of Rocco's LinkedIn history and his work history and his about section are going to be here. You can actually click in and see a feed of his personal Twitter account, since we can see that he's got one set up. That'll load right here, and you can scroll through these tweets. You can see that company page, which is going to give you a lot of high-level information on that company, all of the relative hyperlinks for their websites and social pages. All the way down, if you scroll down, you can even see some research on that company's existing tech stack, as well as any recent job postings they've made, any recent funding announcements that they've made. So for example, I can go into the job post section here, and you can see some of those. And then if I come into the news section, this is actually integrated with Feedly. So you can put in a keyword here, and then it will be able to pull up some contextual news based on that. So I could even put in a topic related to Rocco and pull up some information there. I don't know why it's not loading in this one for me. Let me hop back over to, it's probably because I've got too many tabs open. Come back over here real quick, come down to news. Regie.ai again, and then it should populate news. It's funny, whenever you do a live technology demo, I was training a team on this right before I hopped into this webinar, and this was working flawlessly. So we'll follow up with some more information on this, but just know typically what happens is you put in keywords, and then a series of news articles will appear beneath here, which will be relevant to that particular buyer. But the way that this all comes together is when I click this create personalized message button down here, I can choose specific data points from all of these different categories that I want to personalize on. So maybe I want to grab something about, who Rocco is. Maybe I want to grab something from their company page here, when they were founded. And then what you do is you add in a value proposition, which you'll remember from the beginning. I mentioned that Regie was powered foundationally by a content management system. So if you've already built out content, you've already built out your value prop snippets, you can easily come in here, find your folder, and grab that messaging that you might want. It's as easy as copy and pasting, adding that in, and generating that message. So this, combined with the correlator feature that is in the AI toolkit, can be really helpful in figuring out the best way to create that rapport bridge. And again, this is going to work in your inbox. This is going to work in your sales engagement platform, basically anywhere that you're sending an email to somebody where you can add their email address in the to-line. Okay, so we're at the 20-minute mark so far. So we've got about 15 or so minutes left here. What we've covered so far is the analyzer, how Regie's going to help you, kind of be that email coach as you're writing any of your one-off messages. We've talked about some of the handy features in the AI toolkit, which you can use to generate one-off messaging, as well as, additional snippets of text that you might need. And then we've also talked about how you can leverage Regie's research features and functionality to create personalized messages just directly in the Chrome extension here. There's a couple of other things that I want to highlight, but I'm actually going to move on to a HubSpot page real quick, as this is another area of the product that works just incredibly well. So you can see here on this screen, let me zoom in again here to make sure you can actually see what I'm working on. I'm looking at our co-founder Matt Millen's page here, and I'm writing him an email. And you can see, just like before, the analyzer is going to come here. I've got access to the AI toolkit, and that personalization module is going to open up for me as well, so that I can see information on Matt and his background. Where Regie is also very powerful, again, is that content library. So let's say, for example, I want to make sure that I send Matt over a file that just shows some competitive intelligence on how we compare it to other platforms here. What I can do is I can either just copy a link to that file directly, or I can use my share button here to generate a very specific link. So I'll be able to hyperlink this over. I can choose whether or not I want folks to be able to download that. And then I can also choose whether or not I want to require an email to actually view that file. Because what Regie can do is it can actually send back analytics into the core platform so that you can track who's been reading your message, how long they've been reading your message, and different things like that. So I'll go ahead and click this link just to show you how that page appears when a prospect receives that. If you've allowed it to be downloaded, they'll be able to download it. If you've required an email address for it, it is going to require them to insert that email address right here. So I'll use my personal Gmail, add that in, and now I can very easily see that document that was accessed here. And now for administrators, you can come back into the content library in the core platform, and I can see if I go to that file that I was just sharing here, I'll actually be able to see that I have clicked into that link as well as I have viewed that link. So we'll give my computer just a second to load here, and I will show you how this works. Come back into sales, come back into competitive intelligence. And then I want to come into this file here, and you can see those analytics on the right-hand side. So you can see here 25 seconds ago, I generated that link. And if I open up that dropdown, I can see exactly who accessed it, how long they've been viewing it, when it was viewed last, whether or not it's been downloaded. And if it's a multi-page document, I can also see what pages they viewed and how long they viewed those individual pages. So this content library can be really powerful, not only in connecting the business, obviously, and making sure that the teams, kind of the cross-functional teams that you work with, have access to all the documentation that they need, but it can also give you a lot of insight on which pieces of collateral or content that you're sharing and sending out are actually being referenced and used by your prospects, which can be really, really helpful from that standpoint. The other beautiful thing that happens with Regie here is anytime that you save anything from your AI toolkit, you'll be able to access it in your AI favorites menu here. That way you can easily grab any of the things that you love to use. And then we round out that Chrome extension with the mobile preview. You know, I always talk to folks when we're getting set up with them. It's like 60 to 65% of your prospects are reading and responding entirely on their mobile device. So making sure that this view is really optimized is very important. People often read messages the same way that they read or consume social media. So if you think about how you might scroll through a Twitter feed, it's a lot of short staccato sentences, a good amount of breakup between each line. That way it's just very easy to follow, consume, and understand. And Regie's going to make sure that you've got all of that available for you right there. Okay, some other places that the Chrome extension comes into play that I want to highlight. If you are an outreach user, if you're a SalesLoft user, if you are a Apollo user, a HubSpot user, and you're operating in any of your sequences, you can actually come in and take a look at your existing campaigns and sequences. You can open up those templates and you can use Regie's tools and functionality to not only analyze your existing content, but also help you start to analyze that content as well. And you'll see here, as I highlight text, that context menu is following me wherever I go, so I can constantly use the rephraser, the shortener, or the expander to make sure that my language is up to par wherever I go. One thing I always love to do with that, you know, personally, I tend to be very verbose in my updates that I send to my leaders. So I'll often open up my email here. I might paste in, you know, what my full update is, and then I just use the shortener over and over again until I, you know, find a better way of saying what I'm trying to say. So I do get a lot of really positive usage out of that as we go through here. Finally, the other productivity flow that I always like to highlight is how this looks in the task view of your sales engagement platform. So oftentimes we're working with reps who are, you know, tasked with customizing the manual first step of a sequence. So if you're operating out of your outreach task view, your SalesLoft task view, your HubSpot task view, Reggie's going to come right along with you there, and you'll be able to leverage not only the analyzer, the toolkit, but also that personalization piece for each prospect that you're sending an email to. So this can be really powerful, again, in just streamlining those tasks. We'd love to see a rep sit down and just bust through 50 emails in about an hour just by leveraging the research features here. And again, that mobile preview is going to continue to come with you, so you can make sure no matter where you're at, you're optimizing your emails for that function. Okay, so we are at the half-hour mark now. Just as a quick recap, we've covered the analyzer of the Chrome extension, how this is going to continue to give you really positive coaching throughout the entire email writing process. The AI toolkit, where you can create a number of different things using our artificial intelligence modules, from your value prop and pain point snippets to your personalized emails, even more specific email types in here, like follow-ups, content download responses, event reminders, more general follow-up, as well as LinkedIn modules here, because that is the final platform that the Chrome extension works on right now, which is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is going to be really helpful, again, in making sure that you are staying connected with all of the prospects that you want to have in there. And then we've also discussed the personalization aspect. I'll show you in just a second how this functions on LinkedIn as well. Your content library, where you can keep your entire organization connected and make sure that you're tracking really strong analytics on that, your AI favorites, and your mobile preview. So I'm going to pull up LinkedIn in just a second here. While I'm doing that, we do want to use the back half of these 15 minutes for anybody, especially if you're a current Regie user. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat. If there are specific things that you want to see, specific things you have questions on, these final 15 minutes are yours to ask whatever you would like. Just move LinkedIn over here. So you can see I'm on Raka's page. I'm sending him a message in the lower right-hand side, and that personalization window is going to continue to come with me here so that I can easily pull up all of that information as I'm going. So that Chrome extension, the same way that it works in your Outlook or Gmail inbox or in your sales engagement platform, is going to come into the LinkedIn window as well, so that as you've got that person's profile pulled up, you can easily come in here and use all of those great features. Marissa, I saw your question. Any tips for using the rephrase tool? Yeah, so there's a few common use cases that we see crop up with the rephrase tool. First and foremost, if you're just struggling to figure out how to say something or even say something in a better way, the rephrase tool can be great as far as like generating those ideas, right? The other main thing that people do is we recommend about every 60 to 90 days or so, you should really be refreshing the templates of your existing sequences. And this is for a couple of reasons. One, if you're prone to recycling prospects, they might get entered into the same sequence twice over time, and you don't want them to get the same messaging. But two, the more times that an email is sent, the better that those spam filters get on it. So if you're sending a high volume of emails out over a long period of time and there's no change in them, it's more likely over time that those emails might start ending up in spam folders. So I often recommend coming into your sales engagement platform where your sequences are running and using the rephraser to refresh some of those templates that maybe haven't been refreshed in a little while. And of course, the analyzer can also help you in that regard in making sure that you're really optimizing that in the right direction. And Belinda, yes, so this is being recorded. Our marketing team is going to be sending out a follow-up with a link to the recording to everybody that's been registered, that attended today, and then you'll be able to share that with the rest of your team there. And of course, if you if for whatever reason you don't get that recording, let us know. Reach out to your CSM, reach out to me. I'm just James at Regie.ai, and we'll make sure that we get you that recording. What other questions do folks have? Yeah, no problem, Belinda. Happy to help you out. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. Good to see you again. Glad you're able to make it today. Happy November. Okay, we'll give folks a few more minutes to get their questions in if anybody's got any. If you haven't downloaded Regie yet, you really ought to go and at least sign up for our free trial so that you can see exactly what it's all about. But again, this tool is really designed to help those frontline staff members, from the SDRs, the AEs, honestly, all the way through the customer success organization, to help them, create better, more relevant content in their day-to-day messaging. You see some folks type in here. Give you an example of what this looks like to expand a sentence out. You'll see the same side-by-side options that you saw from before. That way you can choose which language that you want to use. Hey, Marissa, great question. Marissa asked if there's a list of all the tones we can ask Reggie to use when creating emails in the AI toolkit. Happy to include in the follow-up to this one some of the most commonly used tones, but the reason that there's not a list is because you can literally ask Reggie to write in any tone. It is a natural language processor, which really just means that it can take that information in, scour the web, to help contextualize that. Thank you, Katie. Katie actually just dropped a link to our help center, which also has that list of suggested tones in there as well. Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think that's a top 10 list. Katie asks if there's any other personalization tips. Broadly speaking, what we want to do when we're thinking about personalization, there's two ways to think about personalization, right? You can personalize for the individual, or you can personalize for the relevancy to the business need. So oftentimes, and this is what I was talking about earlier on how I really like that sometimes when you're generating the personalized cold email in Regie that it's going to pull in some statistics, because oftentimes when I am thinking about my first step in outreach, I want to personalize my email more so to the business need than to something like personal about the prospect. The personal pieces for the prospect are really great, especially in like the follow-ups and really trying to optimize and make sure that they are actually opening those emails. But the first thing I want to do is make sure that I understand, who exactly am I talking to? We've got this methodology that we call the 3 Ps. And basically what that means is like, who's your persona? Like, who's the person that I'm trying to build rapport with and that I'm speaking to? What's their pain point? What pain are they in? What anxiety do they have about their day-to-day work? What do they not have a current solution for that they might be struggling with or need a solution for? That's where we start to introduce that relevancy piece, making sure that our message is highly relevant to what that person is likely experiencing based on what we know about our product. And then finally, it all ties together with that value proposition, right? So that's where you introduce that credibility piece. If you've got a really stellar solution to a genuine problem that somebody has, you owe it to them to try to have that conversation with them because we're here to make their lives better, right? So I always recommend when I'm thinking about personalization in the beginning, like try to personalize it to that business need first and the individual second. Really good questions, y'all. Okay, well, we are at the point today where we'll be wrapping up. So if anybody's got any final questions, please drop them in the chat. Otherwise, really appreciate everybody taking the time today. Like I mentioned, we will be sending this out as a follow-up recording so you can share it with your teams. And of course, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, James at Regie.ai directly. Give us a shout out on LinkedIn. Connect with us. Our team always loves to hear any feedback that folks have on the product or the tool. Thank you all so much. I hope everybody has a great rest of their week and a great holiday season coming up. Take care, everybody.